Hey guys, hope everybody's having a great Tuesday. It's a beautiful Tuesday here in Tennessee. A little bright, but that's okay. I am wearing a vintage Timex automatic, trying a little thing called Timex Tuesday on Instagram. So pop over there and join me if you have some Timexes. In the interim, let's do a show. Alright guys, so we're going to have to do this as a voiceover due to the fact that someone decided they wanted to do yard work right as I started recording. So I'm going to turn down my original voice and do this voiceover, and hopefully everything will match up and it won't be too much of a mismatch, so I apologize. So basically I've gotten into podcasts. I listened to a few: Unwound, The Grey NATO, On Time. And I believe I was listening to Unwound, and the guys were talking about space watches. And they actually titled it Watches in Space. Watches in Space, kind of like the pigs in space, space from the Muppets. If you guys don't know what that is, you're too damn young. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, if you don't know what that is, go look it up. Pigs in Space was hilarious. You could probably find it on YouTube. But anyway, yeah, so I had two of those watches. I had the Bulova Moonwatch Re-Edition on the left, and the Strella Sekonda, vintage Strella Sekonda on the right. And so I thought, I've done videos on both of these, unboxings as well as sort of a little history lesson. So I won't do that again, but I thought I could go over that, these two watches in sort of a watches in space format. Sort of the differences, the similarities. They have more similarities than they do differences, but there are some of both. So I thought I could go over those things. So the first thing you'll notice is that the one on the left is a modern timepiece. The one on the right is a vintage timepiece. Originally, they were both from around the same era. However, Bulova only made one of the original moon watches and gave it to Commander Dave Scott. He used it on the moon, kept it in his personal collection, and then just recently, as of 2016, sold it for a large sum of money. So I can put a link in the description as where you can go to look for that information too. Pretty cool history there. And I'll put a link in the description for the Sekonda history also. They have a great history in the Soviet Union. So basically we're looking at two Cold War space watches. So to get into it, we'll flip over to running this chronograph. So we're going to run the Bulova chronograph by hitting the top pusher. And you notice the sub-dial at 3 is now spinning. I'm not 100% sure why that it spins, but I believe it's to notify you that the chronograph is actually functioning. You can see the large chronograph hand moving across the dial. The sub-dial at 6 is still running seconds, and then within the sub-dial at 6 you have your date. The original Bulova was not quite as large as this one, which is, by the way, 45 millimeter, 45 and a half millimeter, and it did not have a date. But being a modern timepiece, they added a date. So as you see the hand move across the minute track, it just crossed the sub-dial 9. The sub-dial 9 is your minutes advance. So you'll see hours at 3, minutes at 9, and seconds at 6. And so you can see it just advanced. And that's one of the primary differences between the Bulova and the Sekonda as far as visuals, is the amount of subdials and their functions, and the placement of those functions. But what's kind of interesting is the Bulova, the re-release was issued as a quartz timepiece, a high beat quartz, which is a little bit different than the original as well. And again, I won't go over all the history, but it's a larger piece. It's a larger piece that also has a date and also has a quartz movement. So 3 of those things are a little bit different from the original, and you mirror that with the Sekonda that we're going to start running here in just a second. And it is a manual wind, automatic movement, and we've got instead of the 3 subdials, we have 2 subdials. You can see I'm about to start it here, I believe. Yes, and you can see the seconds hand, the large chrono seconds hand is very thin. It's almost the size of like a human hair, so it's a little hard to read. We have the 2 subdials I just pointed out. The right subdial at 3 is for hours. The subdial at 9 is for minutes. So quite a different setup, but still very functional for their needs, which would be timing different things. If you've ever watched Apollo 13, you know, or I'm sorry, but anyway, if you've ever watched that movie, then you will know exactly what I'm talking about. Great need to be able to time things accurately. So if we look at the lug diameter, we're looking at an 18 millimeter on your Sekonda, and then on your Bulova, you're looking at a 20 millimeter lug width. So very different there as well. So not only case size, but lug width is different. And I've replaced the original bands on both for NATO straps. I've grown to really like NATO straps, so I've replaced that. The one on the left is a cheapest NATO straps brand. The one on the right is a toxic NATO's strap brand. But you can see both of the larger chrono hands circling the dial, and I'm going to go ahead and stop this one. You can see the subdial at 3 just circled around, and then when I go to reset it, I'll hit this bottom pusher, which are quite large, so it's easy for the gloved hand of a spacesuit to activate them. And you can see how smooth that large chrono hand was to get back to 0. It's just a beautiful thing. I would almost spend all day starting and stopping it if I could. And we're going to stop the Sekonda here with the smaller pushers, and then we're going to reset it, and you can see that quick snap, just immediately back to 0. The same sort of thing you would find in a high quality mechanical like a like an Omega Moonwatch, the Omega Speedmaster Professional. So one thing that's interesting is, even though we're looking at a 45, little 45 plus size and a 38 millimeter plus size, the lug lengths, the lug widths may be different, but the lug lengths are very, very similar. And we'll put those on the wrist in a little bit, and you can see what I'm talking about. But they wear very, very similarly, which is surprising. And the only thing I can figure with that is the need to have a larger piece on the wrist for visuals and for just sturdiness. If we look at the back, we have a screwed down case back with engraving around the side, and then engraving and embossing in the center, dedicating it to the Commander Dave Scott's moon mission. And then on the right, the Sekonda, you can see, is a nice smooth pop-off case back. And it's so definitely different, the screw down here and then the pop-off over here. And then, of course, the movements are different as well. A high beat quartz on the left, a manual wind on the right. And here's where I actually originally started talking about the diameter of the lugs. And you can see actually there's a satin finish on the Moonwatch and a polished finish on the Strella that I had not mentioned yet. And I apologize that sometimes this isn't going to quite match up, but I'm doing my best here. So you can see it on the wrist on this cheapest NATO straps. NATO done in a brown suede. Super comfortable NATO, by the way, and I think it looks fantastic on this NATO. I had a little trouble deciding what I wanted to do as far as a strap for this thing. I didn't like it on a bracelet. I wasn't a really big fan of it on the bund that it came on. It was a nice bund strap, but it's quite dark, and it just kind of muted the whole thing. You can see the bubbled case. I'm sorry, not the bubbled case, the bubbled crystal, which kind of exudes sort of a new look to it. I love the reflections that come from it, even though it's not incredibly reflective. I don't think it has a coating, but it's pretty anti-reflective. But the reflections that do happen are beautiful. And then mirror that to the Moonwatch that has a very flat crystal. You'll see in just a second. Even though it's a much larger watch, and you can see that in width. The length of that watch from the top of my wrist to the bottom of the wrist is very similar. It does sit much higher, as you can see. And you can see the flat crystal actually kind of protrudes from the case slightly. And I don't know why that is, although it was the same thing on Commander Dave Scott's watch. Now I wanted to show you guys this. This is a 38 millimeter watch and a 45 plus watch. And look at those. Look at those lengths. The length of this watch, the width is certainly different, but the length of those watches are very, very close due to the lugs. And yeah, I just love it on the NATO. I was really actually thinking about not buying this one if you've seen my earlier videos. And by the way, if you have not seen my earlier videos, don't go back. They're terrible. I'm learning as I go, guys. But you can see that I ended up purchasing it. I'm very happy I did. I was worried about the size. Most people are either worried about the quartz or the size. I would not be worried about the quartz. It's perfect. It's kept great time. Would not be worried about the size either. And as far as the size, you can see the differences in the thicknesses, and you can see the differences in the crystals there. So yeah, just this thing is so beautiful, and I was actually back and forth on getting it as well, but I'm really glad I've got both. I will definitely add a Speedmaster Moonwatch to my collection at some point. I'll definitely add an original Seiko moon or space watch to my collection as well. But I just want to appreciate you guys stopping by. Thanks for bearing with me as I try to voice over a video that was actually pretty good, but you just can't hear it due to all the background noise. So yeah, and I'm back and forth on whether I'm going to delete some of those original videos because they're pretty terrible. But you know, this is harder than it looks. So I appreciate you guys sticking around. I appreciate you guys supporting me. You know, if you've liked this video, please click that like button. Please subscribe so you can get more if you've enjoyed it. And then let me know what you think. Let me hear your ideas and suggestions. And you know, I'd love to see your collections too. If you want to email me some photos or at wristwatchaddiction@gmail, or if you want to PM me at wristwatch.addiction at Instagram. I'd love to see some photos of your collection. Maybe I can talk about them here. And I've got a new video I may use for the opening next time. I'll show you now, and you tell me what you think. See you guys.